Blessings, namaste, and love, everyone, and happy new year. I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Sette. As always, I thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with you my astrological and spiritual insights. We're beginning a new year, so in this segment, we are looking to January of 2024. I trust everyone enjoyed a warm and wonderful holiday season, and we do anticipate a blessed 2024 to unfold for everyone. Now, we begin the new year on January 1st. However, I always emphasize that whenever we look at anything astrologically, anything begins at the moment something comes together in a precise alignment. For example, on a new moon, when the sun and moon align together at the exact position, it begins the lunar cycle. A new day astrologically begins at the exact moment of sunrise and not at midnight. So the exact moment of sunrise, when the sun is connecting at the exact east point on the horizon, that actually begins for us the new day. That being said, January 1st at 7:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Lubec, Maine is the first sunrise in the United States. So as I observe it, that is what I understand when our new year begins. That being said, we start the new year with the continuation of Mercury retrograde. Now, Mercury has been retrograde since December 12th. It will move direct on January 2nd, and I always emphasize for us to recognize that not until Mercury moves past the point at which it changed directions and moved retrograde are we not completely out of the retrograde influences. And that time will be on January 21st of 2024. Mercury moved direct on December 13th. I said December 12th. It moved retrograde December 13th. It will move direct on January 2nd. And on January 21st, it is when it moves past the point at which it went retrograde. And that's when we're completely out of the retrograde influences. Once again, when we understand how to work with the planetary energies, we are empowered to counteract any negative influences that may be potentially created by certain alignments, especially when we are observing them as to be adverse. Anything adverse can always be positive when we understand how to work with the energy. We don't create a suitable outcome when we're working against it, when we're not going with the flow. Specifically here, as I'm saying, regarding a Mercury retrograde, when we understand how to work with the energy, how to go with the flow, then we counteract any negative influences. As always, I suggest to recognize the retrograde is the time to go within. We embrace all the RE words during a Mercury retrograde. Reflect, review, remember. If you're working on a manuscript, you dedicate time to rewriting, reviewing, and then rewriting the manuscript. That's how we counteract the negative influences of the Mercury retrograde. When we are aware of the potential effects of the Mercury retrograde, we understand that we need to allow ourselves perhaps a little bit more time when traveling. That being said, I've actually traveled during a Mercury retrograde, specifically on an airplane, when all the scheduling actually was extremely early and never delayed. One, that's because I created the plans, the travel plans outside of the Mercury retrograde. So I didn't create the plans, I didn't establish the plans during the Mercury retrograde. I established the plans outside of the Mercury retrograde. But also too, I understood that when I was traveling, Mercury was retrograde, there was potential disruptions, and I really did not allow myself to project a concern. You see, quite often we project the concerns during the retrograde, that things are going to become disrupted, our plans will go awry. However, when we just keep that in the back of the mind and just allow ourselves to not be fearful, go with the energy, and really just be in the moment, that's how we counteract the negative effects of a Mercury retrograde. We just need to be mindful of what is required on our part to counteract those negative effects. So, that being said, we have our first lunation, which is a new moon, and the new moon will be on January 11th. I had to think for a minute there, excuse me. I was confusing because I was going to say that prior to the new moon, as I always emphasize, we have the balsamic moon phase, which is the last phase of the lunar cycle, which is the opportunity to energetically prepare for the coming lunar phase. The balsamic moon is on January 7th, and the exact moment of that is 8:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is the last phase of the lunar cycle, which is the opportunity to energetically prepare for the coming lunar experience. We clear, cleanse, purge, we reflect on what it is that we are casting in motion at the time on the new moon, and we release whatever is not in alignment with those plans so that we can create the vibrational frequency prior to the new moon, so to fortify our intentions as well as the alignments on the new moon, so that we can bring forth and create that which we desire. Now, our new moon is on January 11th. The exact time of the new moon is 6:57 a.m., and that is Eastern Standard Time. The new moon is in the sign of Capricorn. It's about 21 degrees of Capricorn, and in close proximity to the new moon at this lunation, we have Pluto at the last late stages degrees of Capricorn. You know, Capricorn represents, among many things, our career, our path, our profession. It also is representative of our goals, especially the long-term goals. So this new moon, it really is an opportunity to plant the seeds, to cast in motion the intentions for our long-term goals. This actually connects with what we plant and set in motion at the time of the winter solstice, because that's also an opportunity to really plant the seeds, because the winter solstice begins the Capricorn phase of the astrological calendar. Capricorn, again, long-term goals, as well as our career path, profession. Capricorn, I understand, also represents our greater purpose, a higher purpose. So I suggest to really embrace this time. If you're not clear as to what that might be, perhaps reflect on what might be a greater purpose for you. You know, I'm observing through many private consultations specifically that so many individuals are really being inspired to recognize and embrace why they're here. You know, I always emphasize that whatever it is that might be our greater purpose, it really is whatever it is that we are very passionate about in our lives. You know, allow yourself the time to really reflect where your passion is in life. And I've talked about this many times in the past. But as we go through this year specifically, so many will be inspired to really move forward with their purpose and why they're here. And that Pluto element connected to the new moon really brings us the opportunity, or rather offers us the opportunity, to really tap into and really connect with great power. Pluto represents, among many things, our ability and the potential to bring forth and manifest great desires and great intentions. Pluto is tremendous power. If Pluto is also, if you can imagine the energy that is released during an atomic detonation, that's specifically a perfect example of the power that is connected to Pluto. That is a low-level negative vibrational polarity of that Pluto influence. The positive side is when we bring forth great desires that serve a purpose, a greater purpose for many, many individuals. Pluto connects with empowerment, self-empowerment. This new moon, it's also an opportunity to really fortify and understand the power within the self, to empower yourself, and understand how we all are the masters of our destiny, which is something that I've always touched upon for many, many years now. That's that Pluto element, being the master of your destiny. The negative side is when we demonstrate and tap into that energy, when we try to control others, when we try to overly influence, when we try to disempower others. That's the negative polarity of Pluto. The positive is when we empower others, and by doing so, certainly you empower yourselves and really bring forth some great manifestations that have a positive influence on other individuals. You know, that Capricorn element, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So quite often, it's not until a later time in our lives when there's a strong Capricorn influence in a chart that an individual doesn't necessarily enjoy success. And that being said, it's not a judgment. It doesn't infer that something was done wrong. Just quite often, that's just part of the experiences that are required for us while we are in specifically this human experience to move forward on our spiritual journey and encounter whatever might be necessary for our spiritual growth and evolution. Now, on January 20th, the sun transits into the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign that represents, among many things, the humanitarian, the altruist, as well as our greater service to humanity. So as the sun transits the sign of Aquarius, we're inspired to recognize how we can become humanitarian, how we can very much embrace that altruistic element of our human potential, so to serve a greater purpose for the all of humanity. You know, Aquarius represents great change. It's ruled by Uranus, which is the element of great and prominent change. And quite often, chaos will precede great change. However, that Aquarius element really inspires us to always be the calm in the center of the storm, to observe the chaos that goes on around us and not allow it to have a direct negative impact on our wellness and our well-being. That all comes with awareness and establishing that choice to not allow that negative energy to infiltrate our wellness and our well-being. Now, on the same day that the sun transits into the sign Aquarius, the sun transits the sign of Aquarius on January 20th at 9:07 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pluto, who I was referring to a few moments ago, will transit into the sign of Aquarius at 7:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, Pluto has been hovering in the late degrees of Capricorn. It briefly dipped into Aquarius earlier this year. However, it's primarily been hovering in the late degrees, 27, 28, 29 degrees of Capricorn for most of the year. It will continue hovering in Capricorn. It will go back into Capricorn on September 1st of this year, and it will fully begin its transit of Aquarius on November 19th. After November 19th of 2024 is when Pluto fully begins its transit of Aquarius. Through most of the year, it will be hovering at that late degree of Capricorn. Wherever Pluto transits, it brings destruction. However, that destruction serves a purpose in that it paves the way for rebirth. Whenever we have a significant Pluto transit for us personally, quite honestly, our lives are never the same. And that's not to diminish the challenges and sometimes the difficulties that we endure during a Pluto transit. However, I always use the analogy that Pluto is transformative, and it's no different than when a caterpillar goes into a cocoon to become a butterfly. That cocoon experience is very difficult. It's painful for the caterpillar. However, observe what is born outside of this metamorphosis. That's the best example that we can share as to how to embrace a Pluto transit. As Pluto has been transiting Capricorn, Capricorn represents, among many things, large corporations, banks, and the world leaders. So those elements in the outside world have been transforming. They've also been crumbling. Those entities which no longer serve a greater purpose for humanity are being dissolved, so that more humanitarian, more institutions which are truly in service to humanity are being born. The Pluto into Capricorn transit really begins to usher in the age of Aquarius. There's question as to when the actual age of Aquarius will begin. By my personal calculations, it's not necessarily, I believe I calculated the time to be around 2165. However, that being said, it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy the blessings of that new age. Remember, first and foremost, before anything is to unfold in the outside world, it needs to really manifest within each individual primarily and first and foremost. So if it is your desire to enjoy the blessings of the age of Aquarius, create that within yourself first. Create that on a personal level. Remember, this Pluto element provides us the understanding of that power and how we have the abilities to bring forth great, ambitious desires, and nothing is outside of our reach, which quite often is also defined by limited beliefs and belief systems. That Pluto in Aquarius mindset is really helping us to understand that element of the power of the words and the power of our mind. As I mentioned earlier, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is referred to as the higher octave of Mercury, which is the planet that represents thoughts, the thought process, communications. The Uranus element represents the genius, the ability to think abstractly. I also suggest and inspire every one of us to recognize how, on a personal level, you are a genius. A genius isn't necessarily represented by one like Albert Einstein, who is a great mathematician. Every one of us has genius potential. And it's not specific to quantum physics or extreme mathematics. That genius potential is in every one of us. So I always also, suggest to recognize and embrace that unique genius potential that is within you, especially as we go through this Pluto in Aquarius transit. The transits, sometimes I'm hesitant to offer my understandings on these platforms, because to really understand on a personal level how to work with this energy, we need to observe where these influences are specific in our charts. So that being said, I share these understandings just as a guide point, as a point of reference. Embrace what resonates with you. You know, when we have the opportunity to really come together and look at this specifically, it brings it together even more so. But for the time being, and until we have those opportunities, just really embrace what resonates with you, but also to allow yourself to be guided by spirit as to how to really make the most of these energies. You know, and I'm always suggesting, so that we can clearly recognize and understand what spirit is sharing with us, we need to be very dedicated to creating peacefulness within ourselves. When we are peaceful within the self, that's when we are very clear with what spirit is sharing with us and how spirit is guiding us. Now, our next full moon is on January 25th, and the exact time of the full moon is 12:54 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, one of the prominent influences of this full moon is that we are being prepared for the eclipse cycle, the next eclipse season, which takes place in March and April. So that being said, allow yourselves to observe what is shifting in your life, where you feel changes are unfolding, and to prepare yourself what could be coming together for you during the next eclipse season in March and April. Our full moon is on the Aquarius Leo axis. The sun is in Aquarius. The moon is in the sign of Leo. That Leo element is the most prominent astrological character, which represents creativity, especially the creativity that comes from divinity. And when I use the term divinity, it's not specific to one deity. What I emphasize is this creative element which created the all of humanity and the all of creation. Everything in the universe is within every one of us. That creative element is in every one of us individually. And as I always emphasize, creativity is not specific to art or music. Creativity is multifaceted, and every one of us has the potential to really tap into a creative genius, to demonstrate prolific creativity when we allow ourselves to recognize that creative potential. So at this full moon, among many things, allow yourselves to awaken to that creativity and demonstrate that within yourselves. You know, Leo is also very dramatic. It's the sign which represents the thespian, the performer. You know, quite often, sometimes we at times can be very dramatic. However, when that's demonstrated always from that place of love, which Leo also represents among many things, the love elements, you know, we are very inspirational to others. Look at it this way. Leo represents blood and Aquarius represents circulation. So when we allow ourselves to really, one, be in a place of love within ourselves, but also demonstrate that love in many ways, we circulate that love to the all of humanity. Just think about that one for a moment there. And allow yourself also to embrace what you really love, whatever it is in your life that you really truly love being. You know, that's also an indication of your purpose and perhaps why it is that you are here. And by being that passion and that great potential, you circulate those high vibrational frequencies and that love element to the all of humanity. Once again, everyone, I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. I thank you for this opportunity, for allowing me to share with you some of the many, many astrological alignments that can occur during a given month. You know, we're beginning another unprecedented year. Certainly, I inspire everyone to understand how to keep yourselves peaceful, protected, clear yourself of any negative influences, which sometimes we encounter in our day-to-day lives. You know, there are many tools and many modalities out there. I always suggest to explore these options as to how to empower yourself spiritually and embrace whatever resonates with you. In a few months, I will be returning to Florida. I've already have those dates established, and very soon we will be sharing that and making that information public. My schedule always fills up, even at the moment when we establish and share the dates. So as always, I do look forward to connecting with everyone. You know, this time of year, I'm always very reflective throughout the year, but even more so during the holiday season. And the sense of gratitude, of fulfillment and joy that I experience when I have these opportunities to really interact with everyone is truly a blessing, and I never take any of that for granted. So if I haven't done so, and I always am mindful to, in some sort of way, extend this, I am so very grateful to everyone who comes to me, whether it be privately or during my gallery events, or even just allowing me this very, very brief moment to share with you some of these understanding. That being said, remain in the light and forever in a place of love, and we will come together again very soon. Many blessings. Namaste.